requests, and the next item is review and consideration of the recommendation to remodel the old high school weight room into a learning area for the math lab.
I'll let you go with this one.
Okay.
I believe it was last month, we considered changes to the addition of a remedial math program at the high school to help students with math. And in that proposal was a proposal actually to remodel the existing old weight room into a math lab. And we kind of held off on that just a little bit because we wanted to make sure we had a good idea where the budgets were going, I think, at that time. And since that time, I've updated the Finance Committee on the end of the year status, and I believe after looking at that we should be able to, I know we will be able to, accommodate the remodeling of this project. The project remodel includes the epoxy floor of the old weight room, much like you're seeing in the other existing rooms. The demolition, wall construction, new ceiling, cutout hall in the block wall, new doorway. We have two doors into that area right now that you can access from each side of the gym. When you walk into the gym, we would put an access door out in the hallway. And then also there would be new lights, electrical circuits, and labor, and we would also need to install a 6-ton rooftop unit to provide heat and AC to that unit. Remember, currently right now the gymnasium is not air conditioned. The only way that we would be able to do that is by providing, putting in its own self-contained rooftop unit. We could do some other things, save a little bit of money on that project by possibly running the HVAC with a boiler and chiller on a cycle time like we do with the rest of the building. The difference between that is there's no outside air coming into that room. There are no window access. So in the tough times of the year at the high school, and everybody who works at that building truly understands that fall and winter, when you're moving from heating to cooling, are the very difficult times of the year. And at times it's nice to either have the windows open to let some cool air in if you're still in the heating cycle and you haven't switched over to the cooling cycle. If we did not do this, that area with that many bodies, and that would get very hot and really almost unusable to that point. So we're recommending, and we've talked about this at the Board Facilities Committee, to remodel that old weight room for approximately $86,027. I don't have a nice visual for it. I think we're not putting anything in there at this point in time. We will be looking at putting some tables and some lab stations in there, but it's not like when we do a traditional remodel or build a computer lab where we're putting in countertops on it. So it's what you see here is what you're going to get. A room much like this.
Anyone have questions? I have a couple.
Go ahead.
As it stands right now, it's the old weight room. It's not being used as a weight room.
It's being used as storage right now.
Purely for storage.
No. Okay. And that will only be a third of that existing weight room. The other third of that will be used as storage for the athletic department.
Okay, we're only using a portion.
A third for athletic storage. The other 2/3 will be used for
the new math.
The new math lab.
And it says, and maybe I missed this, wall construction and new ceiling. Walls, it will be internal walls?
Right now it's one big open area like you have right here. So if you just visualize this room right here and build a wall from one side to the other side to cut this into 2/3, 1/3.
Okay.
That's the wall we're talking about.
But the math lab itself will be one big open space?
Yes.
Okay, the wall is purely to divide the storage?
Yes.
And the ceiling, it will have a drop ceiling?
Drop ceiling, there's one in there now, but it's very old.
Okay.
And it needs to be replaced.
Okay. Any other input from facilities? You guys have had
The only question I have is on the 6-ton rooftop unit, well, there's two. One is does that price include like patching the roof?
Yes.
Okay, has anybody looked at the structural to make sure that it can support the weight of the unit?
No, I haven't, but we'll check into that. I can't imagine that it won't.
Yeah.
Good question.
And the noise level with the loft above, the schedule will be adjusted.
That's why it's not a high school office right now, because of the noise levels, and that they will have to adjust at the high school what they're doing in their FIAD classes above that, because it will be noisy up there. And we can spray foam up there. We've worked with TCI on that. We've looked at a lot of different alternatives, but what you have is a large concrete floor sitting on beams up there, and every time you jump or fall or do whatever, it's going to echo in that room. So, matter of fact, I wrote a note to Cindy on that exact thing, that they have to be aware of that. And I know they are. But it isn't something that we can come back and fix. You know, what we do here now is the best that we can do with this, because if we do anything more to that ceiling up there, this, in my opinion, starts to become cost prohibitive at this time.
There was a time at the high school when there were, I think, 2 sets of classrooms that actually had a plastic wall, I don't know if plastic, curtain that you could pull to create a larger learning area. And over the years, both of those the curtains were replaced with a wall. And so we don't have a large instructional room at Toma High School. And as you look, I'm sure as you've looked at magazines and seen some of the transformation that's occurring in education, a lot of schools are creating these kinds of areas so that you can group and regroup kids, so that you can have individualized instruction going on in one area and computer work being done in another area. So this type of remodel job is something that's happening in many schools across the nation. And it's, you know, I envision that we'll be seeing more of this as well in the future, and not just at the high school.
Yeah, this is a project that we would have completed at some time in the future, regardless if we had a plan or not. You know, we see the value of a classroom of this size as a good resource for us going down in the future. And part of, when we look back, when we did that remodel project, or the addition of the commons area and the remodel of the science rooms, part of that discussion was at some point in time when we freed up the space in the weight room and we added that new weight room, that we still would have the potential to add 2 classrooms into high school. And this certainly will not give us 2 classrooms, but it certainly will give us that 1 classroom that we talked about at that point in time. So,
Well, I'm glad you pointed out that it would be something we would want to do anyway. Apart from this math plan, we're taking a space. Not that storage we don't need space for storage, but it sounds like a nice space to create a useful space for learning. And many other schools are taking advantage of spaces like that.
And again, I go back to that referendum that I hoped participate in, and that was the goal of those 2 rooms. It was going to be an office or classroom space. It was never dedicated for storage, and that was one of those things that when we talk about, and we are storage challenged in this district, in just about every building we have, but you won't find a district that's not challenged in that, or organization of our size that doesn't have those problems. So I told people from the get-go, you can put stuff in here, but remember, it's not your storage space. So that's been something. So we are actually keeping a third of that for storage, so that's in itself a win.
But eventually that space, if you found places for that, for storage, it could be used for a smaller classroom or
It could, but I think there are really storage, we have some serious storage limitations. And one of the things that we just need to get better at, you know, as probably any home needs to get better at, is utilizing the current space that you have in order to take care of that. And a lot of times that just involves throwing out stuff that you're not using anymore, or getting rid of it in some form or fashion, because there's, you know, that's one of my priorities, as well as Dave Stutzman, is to make sure that we're utilizing the space we have. We don't want to build any more storage sheds at Tacoma Senior High School grounds or anywhere, because one, they're just kind of an eyesore after a while, and we need to take care of what we got, so. That's not the way to go.
I will make a motion to remodel the old high school weight room into the learning area for a math lab as presented. Do I need to put the cost in there?
Approximately $87,000.
For approximately $87,000.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the recommendation to remodel the old high school weight room into a learning area for the math lab at a cost of approximately $87,000. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and so that proposal is approved. What's the, I know we already finished the discussion, what's the time frame?
This will be completed by the June 30th. We'll get started on this right away. It's something that, other than cutting the door into the hallway, is something that they can get in and start working on without really interfering with what's going on with the other kids.
This is a TCI project?
No, this is a project that we bid out to.
That's right. You had the names up there.
John Peterson, I believe.
Right. Okay.
Will be doing the majority of the work there.
Okay.
And then subcontracting some of that out.
Sure. Okay, great. The next item is the review of the 2013-2014 parent-teacher conference dates. And Mrs. Zardi, who's
I'll
speaking?
just run through those with
Okay.
you. You have already approved the calendar, the school year calendar for next year, and we did have the conference dates scheduled at that time, but I wanted to give our principals some additional time to look at if they wanted to do anything a little bit more creative. Now, this is the first calendar that we've had where conferences have been moved from the end of the quarter. We had them at the elementary level at the end of the quarter, at the end of first quarter and third quarter. And we've shifted those dates so that conferences across the board are at the mid-quarter of first quarter, mid-quarter of third quarter. Our elementary teachers have seen the value also in meeting with parents earlier. So we're going to, because we've never, in the past, we've taken time, the middle school and high school have taken time from that afternoon session to do evening sessions at mid-quarter, but they don't need to do that since all the conferences have been shifted to mid-quarter. So you'll notice that Mr. Buss had said they will just go with this time frame and see how it works. They are planning on calling in individual parents to be meeting with students on that Friday morning when there have traditionally not been there hasn't been as much participation, but that could be different this year because it's mid-quarter time, not the end of the quarter. Mr. Hay at the high school did ask for one slight change, and you'll notice in second semester, they would like to hold the annual success showcase, a second annual. That was very successful this year, especially for the eighth graders who would be coming in as freshmen to meet with teachers and see course offerings and the types of work that students are doing in classrooms. So the Thursday, March 6th, at 1:30 to 3:30 time at the high school, there would not be conferences because that 2-hour block would be moved to the Thursday, January 16th time. So this is what we're looking at for conferences for next year, and I'd like your approval of that if you so agree.
Okay. I'd look for a motion to approve those parent-teacher conference dates for 2013-2014.
So moved to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the 2013-2014 parent-teacher conference dates as presented. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and those conference dates are approved. The next item is the review and consideration of Toma High School Youth Options request for first semester of 2013.
Yes, and we only have one request at this time, and it's for a current junior student who'll be a senior next year, who's requesting to be allowed to take Accounting Principles 1 at WTC. The student is an A student. If you look at his transcript, there's only 3 B's. Everything else is A, A minus, A plus. He has already taken accounting, advanced accounting, marketing, and personal financial literacy. So he has maxed out on any type of accounting or business ed class that would be beneficial for him. So I would recommend that we approve this request for the Accounting Principles 1 class. It will cost a little over $500.
So moved to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Toma High School Youth Options request for first semester of 2013 as presented. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and that request is approved. The next item is the review and consideration of 2 open enrollment exception requests.
Yes, so one of these I'm going to be recommending that you go ahead and approve. The second, we are recommending that you deny the request for. So the first request is a student who is currently attending school at Logan High School. They're temporarily living in Toma. They have moved here. They are planning on moving back to La Crosse. They could do a year waiver at La Crosse. They wouldn't have to do open enrollment, but they would for next year. So if they haven't moved before the start of next school year, they'd have to do open enrollment. So it's just easier for them to do the open enrollment for this year and for next year. So again, the student's family is just here temporarily. They don't want to move him from Logan to Toma, back to Logan. So we understand that, and we think that application should be approved. The second is a student who claims that she is homeless, but she's living in Onalaska. And we don't have any record of her being homeless while she was attending Toma High School. We had filed truancy on her for not attending. The paperwork that they've done has indicated that they're residing in Onalaska. So really, the open enrollment request should be completed through the Onalaska School District, not through the Toma School District. So we would recommend that you deny that request.
Yeah, I'm still confused about that. They are or
If-
were attending
They-
Toma.
She was enrolled here at one point in time, and we filed truancy because she was not coming to school. Apparently, they're living in Onalaska, so then the application was done to allow her to open enroll in Onalaska. I'm sorry, but they're open enrolling to a virtual school. So, but we're saying you're living in Onalaska, that is the school district of your residency, so you have to apply for virtual school through Onalaska, not through us.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. It's your position, we are not the resident school district.
Correct.
Even
Yeah.
though we were the last school attended by her.
That's correct, because they have now indicated on the application that they are residing in Onalaska,
Okay.
not here.
Okay.
These get very confusing.
All right.
Why does it because like when it says resident school district on the application, it says on Alaska, and then it says in parentheses, Toma.
And they filled that out?
They
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So-
They seem to be confused.
Trying to club, I guess.
They would have to make a compelling argument that they're homeless based on the rules for homeless in order for us.
Right. Homelessness is a reason to just allow an open enrollment request, but when they were living here, there was none of our social workers, we had no record of them being homeless. And we question whether they're homeless since they're indicating that they live in Alaska.
Oh, yeah,
They have an address listed, so it's,
There's guidelines to meet the requirement of being homeless.
There is a formal designation of
Yes,
being
there's
homeless.
Yes.
Okay.
McKinney Act, I believe it is, that determines whether you are homeless or not, and that's a
Okay.
process.
And that was never made in this case?
Not that,
correct,
I'm
right.
assuming based on
Okay.
what Mrs.
No, that's
Harvey
helpful.
said.
Okay. Do we need to have separate motions for these to keep it
Yes.
straight? I guess then we'll address the first one, the student who is going to school at Logan,
Yes.
which you had recommended approving. I'd look for a motion on that request.
So moved to improve, involve her with us. Enroll. So moved.
I'm sorry,
So moved, John.
okay, to approve that request.
Right.
Okay,
Second?
so we have a motion, and a second, to approve the first request of the student going to school at Logan. Any other questions on that one? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. So that the motion carries and that request is approved. The second request concerns the student apparently living in Alaska who had claimed to be homeless, and the recommendation is for denying that request, as it appears we are not even the resident school district.
So moved to deny her.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to deny the second request as presented. Any other questions concerning that request? All those in favor, which would be in favor of the motion is to deny, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. So the motion carries and that request is denied. The next item is the consideration of a letter to send to legislators related to concerns with funding for education in the current biennial budget. And Mrs. Zardi will speak to that.
Right, I think if you've been following the governor's budget in the paper and editorials in regard to it, public education is not sustainable if a zero increase in the revenue limit is, the standard of how we're going to be dealt with. And we can talk about the voucher issue as well, because there's a strong concern over the idea that it appears that the ideology of our current situation is that we publicly fund education, not that we fund public education. And there is a big difference between those two things. We're saying that we believe public education is what every citizen of this country is entitled to, and that taxpayer money should not be spent on a second type of educational system, which is a private educational system. And while we understand the value of choice, for parents that may be living in districts where schools are not performing as well as we'd like. Those schools aren't going to improve if they're not given the funds necessary to improve. And a lot of the research on the voucher schools, again, shows that students who participate in those schools are not performing significantly better than students in public schools. So we are at kind of a crossroads in the state of Wisconsin right now. I think people feel very strongly that money for vouchers is a policy issue. It should not be in the budget. That we need a discussion statewide whether we fund public education or whether we publicly fund education. And that can't happen in a budget bill. So school districts across, boards of education across the state of Wisconsin are taking a stand at this point and saying we need to contact our legislators, we need to be talking with them about the impact of this budget on public education. And so I have pieced together for you a letter that highlights what TOMA is dealing with, specifically in terms of how the last budget impacted us and our concerns with the current budget. I've also included for you the sample board resolution that the Wisconsin Association of School Boards is recommending school boards approve, and both of these documents, with whatever changes you would like to make in them, if you approve them, would be sent to not only our legislators, but I think they need to go to the Joint Finance Committee as well as the Education Committee in the Capitol. So I don't know if you have concerns or questions about the information that was contained in either of these documents.
I think we just need to let the community know that this money that they want to give for the vouchers for the private schools is coming out of the main pot for the public education. And that means less money for public education. And that the public or the private schools are not held to the same standards that the public schools are. And it is a big concern.
And it's not just less dollars, it means no new dollars for public education, while we're going to be funding new dollars to the voucher system. And that's kind of the bigger concern we have, is that we have many mandates that we have to fund. There are many requirements that we have to do, whereas the voucher systems are not held under those same requirements that we are mandated. And if we're going to do that, then we should be funding public schools at the same rate that we're funding the voucher schools, so that we can at least have a chance here. And as Mrs. Zardi said, there is no research saying that they are doing better than the public schools at this point in time.
And there's definitely no proof, and they're definitely not held to the same standard either, so.
And there are two issues. I mean, there's the issue of no new money for public schools. That's one issue, and how that impacts us financially regardless of what happens with vouchers. And then there's the whole topic of should we be supporting voucher schools as well. So there's really two issues that come into play.
And if you really look at it, it's the expansion from one educational system to two separate educational systems. And that's really what's happening here. You're seeing two educational systems that if we can't afford one, how can we afford two? That's really the argument that I'm hearing at this point in time.
I would think there'd be additional support from districts across the state with this, Cindy. So if we're doing this across the state, it could have a big effect on what goes on in Madison.
We would hope so.
Right.
Yes. You know, Mr. Hennessy brought up, again, as did Mr. Gorder, the differences in accountability. And tonight's a good example. When you look at the money that you approved for new resources in English and math because of the Common Core. You know, that's expense that we're incurring because there's a new curriculum that we are really required to adopt. That requirement doesn't exist in private voucher schools. They can teach the curriculum that they choose to. We have a committee that's focused on a flexible learning year. We can't implement that because we are tied to a law that says September 1st is when public schools can start. Voucher schools can have their school year run any time of the year. So there are things that we want to do that our hands are tied on because we're a public school, and there's things that we're expected to do and not given funding to do. So you almost feel like you can't win. You're trying to make improvements and do better and not getting the support that you need to do that.
Well, and I think that's actually the intent, at least that's my opinion. Mr. Gorder, you said that what we're doing is we're funding two separate education systems. And it's my belief that the intent is that the governor wants to phase out public education and privatize it. That's what my belief is. So he's choking out the public schools to increase private schools or charter schools or whatever you want to call them. I guess that's the way I look at it.
And there are additional provisions in the governor's budget, for instance, in regard to charter schools, that even public charter schools that are run by public school districts, that the school board loses some degree of control over running those charter schools. That he has suggested that there be a statewide board that would govern charter schools. So, we're talking about local control issues, and I know lots of times we say we don't have a lot of local control. I know we often feel that way, but it seems like that is being eroded even to a greater degree.
It should be pointed out the expansion of charter schools and voucher schools will not, in this budget, affect Toma. Okay, but it will affect other districts. And the concern is that this is just a stepping stone until we get to the point where it will be a statewide voucher, charter school. The other thing that we have to be concerned about, we talk about open enrollment expenses. There's also in these conversations, the money that is coming to the district will also follow the student to the school of choice, which means that we will be losing funds in the Toma Area School District to the voucher and charter schools. So right now, we have an open enrollment expense. When a student leaves our district and goes to another school district, that money follows them. Okay, that doesn't mean our expenses in the Toma Area School District necessarily go down, because you have to eliminate a class in order to eliminate a teacher. It's not a one-for-one trade-off. The other thing that is a little bit disconcerting for me is that my personal belief is that you can get the degree of education that you want in any public school in the state of Wisconsin. It's up to the individual and the family to ensure to a certain degree that is happening. If you believe that your child will be able to get an excellent education, it happens every year in the state of Wisconsin. Furthermore, it scares me a little bit that we're going to be entertaining a system of the haves and the have-nots here in education, and not only what will be left in public education, but what will be in the voucher schools, what will be in the charter schools. Where is that idea of commonality anymore if we're going to privatize education and we're not going to have the commonality of the public school system anymore? I mean, it really in some ways is the last melting pot in this country that we have here. So it's a little disconcerting now that we're going to take what we've worked so hard over the centuries to bring together so many people of different origins and now start separating them out again. Obviously there's things we need to improve on, but you still can get an education in public schools to the degree that you put into it.
And I think, that's something that we need to do a better job of promoting. And we have many highly successful graduates from the Toma School District that are not only in our community, but that are making large contributions across not only the state as well as our nation and worldwide. And highlighting those people and the quality education that you can get right here at home if you put your heart and mind into it is important for people to realize. So we need to do more promotion of the good things that and the great individuals who have gone through our system. Can't remain silent on this issue. We've got to take a stand. So I really encourage you to consider how you want to do that. I know that there is a legislative seminar scheduled for early April at CISA, and I would encourage as many of you as possible to attend that. We just have to start connecting more with our legislators. We're fortunate that our legislators tend to support us in our beliefs. I mean, both Amy Sue Ruink and Julie Lassa. I think if you saw the Toma Journal of this week, there was an article by Julie about feast or famine, and that public schools really are being starved. And I know that Ms. Ruink feels the same way. And again, we've got Jennifer Schilling on the Finance Committee from the La Crosse area who also is very supportive of public education. So we're fortunate that we have individuals who will listen to us and agree with us, but I think they need to hear from us to know that we agree with the stance that they're taking.
This letter is well written. Do you need a motion for us for it to be sent? I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the letter to send to legislators related to concerns with funding for education in the current biennial budget as presented for all of the reasons that were just discussed. And I would like to just follow up on that point Mrs. already made about, and I think Mr. Gorder made too, that public education can and does provide excellent opportunities in education if you take advantage of the opportunities and if it's properly funded. I don't want to get into a position of saying, of being anti-choice or demonizing private schools. It's just the direction, or the way that they're handling it is destroying the institution of public education that can be a great thing and has built the United States. And so, again, I guess my point is I don't want to be arguing from a defensive position saying all of those things are bad. It's that we do provide great opportunities for kids every day, and we're just asking for the appropriate funding for that. Any other thoughts on that?
I would certainly agree with you, John, and the educational benefits that have come out of Toma, as Cindy has pointed out, the graduates from here are a proud group nationwide and worldwide. I think we all, as a citizen of Toma or any place, need to take a long, hard look at education that we have, the benefits that we have. And like Cindy said, take a stand, not only us here, but the community as well. I mean, some things that happen in the school district in a day's time, we take for granted. I watch 55 buses drop by the high school every morning and see the kids get out. And it's such a timetable that you see in 10 minutes' time, these kids are offloaded and go into that school for education. Same thing happens at night. You know, we have such a wonderful system. I truly think that Governor Walker has to take another look at what kind of direction he's going in. And hopefully we got enough support in this state to boycott or do something to change his mind. This is something new. Our education that we have has been built way back when.
And to his credit, from what I'm hearing, the governor is open to some changes in
It's good
the
to hear.
budget. So we're hoping that, again, Luther Olson and Senator Ellis have proposed the $150 per pupil increase, and we're very hopeful that if everyone gets behind that we could at least obtain that amount.
Yes, and he supports a lot of things in this state. Now, one thing he needs to do is get on top of education. Take a closer look at what's going on.
And your letter is good in that it's not just saying we want more money. It lays out our circumstances and what we need to be a viable and productive school district.
And I think it's important to note, we take our responsibility, as stated in the letter, very seriously. We're not content with the status quo. We're trying to improve. We're constantly looking for ways to be better and to help students. And we have an excellent staff that works very, very hard. And I know that our community as well is very supportive of our teachers and our school district, and that's greatly appreciated. But we know we have work to do, and we aren't shying away from that. We're doing everything that we can to make improvements in what we do.
So we do have a motion and a second in support of that letter. Any other questions or thoughts? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and so that letter proposal is approved. And would you like us also then to pass a motion for the WASB resolution?
All of you should sign that as board members, the letter. So you can just sign where it has school board members. And then if you want to pass this resolution, that's fine as well. Above, because it says board. Yes. That certainly can be done as well. I just didn't know which format. Only one has to be done. I just wasn't sure which format you would prefer. So.
Personally, I think our personal letter is sufficient and appropriate, but I'll certainly entertain a motion if people want to pass the sample resolution as well.
I think this is more effective. The letter that was put together for the district, because it has specifics on us, and it states a strong case.
Okay. Is that...
Cindy, excuse me, John.
Sure.
That CISA meeting that you're talking about in April, do you have a date?
Yes, I do. It is scheduled for Thursday, April 4th, 6:30 p.m. at CISA 4. We will get a van together, and anybody that wants to ride over as a group, we can go together.
Where's it at?
It's in West Salem at the CISA building,
It's April 4th.
April 4th.
So we would leave at,
We would leave at 5:30. And I will need to know which of you folks are going to be attending that, because if more than
April 4th.
two of you go, we'll need to do a... 6:30 is when it starts. If you want to go as a group, we'll be leaving at 5:30 from the district office. If you want to drive over separately, that's fine as well, but...
Where are we at with the referendum sample resolution?
Oh, we decided not to do that unless someone wants to make a motion, we can certainly vote on it, but there were at least a few people that felt like the letter was sufficient. So I'm not even going to ask for a motion, but I'll certainly entertain one right now if someone wants to make it.
Judy?
Do you want people to commit right now to the April 4th, or do they need to get to you within the next day or two?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to check your calendars and let me know. If you know today that you're going, I can make a note.
Okay,
I'll go.
I'll go.
I'll go.
I gotta look.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go, Cindy.
Looks like we're at least going to have enough that you'll have to notice it.
Yes.
And we have a van that would accommodate everyone?
At this point, we have 5 people going, so we can take 2 more. 7 is the max in the van. So if Deb and Gary decide to go,
I'll just meet you in West Salem.
okay,
I'll call you tomorrow.
okay.
We hope you'll go, Mr. Grosstein.
I'd like to see it too, John.
Okay?
We'll talk with the budgeter at home.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Her name is Mary Ann.
Okay.
She's a sweetheart at times.
Good luck. The next item is the review and consideration of memorandum of understanding with Northwest Directions to provide mental health services in schools. Mrs. Zardi will
Yes.
speak to that.
So I have included the memorandum of understanding itself, along with a brochure or information from a brochure on this particular program. We've been working with Northwest Passage. They run the school up in Black River Falls that we often send students to that are struggling with emotional issues that interfere with their education. And they have been working towards providing school outreach services to Toma for over a year. They have finally hired a therapist who can assist us and provide that service in the school setting. So it is a licensed therapist. Parents would be obviously involved in the decision if they felt that their child could benefit from having a therapy provided at school. We have located a space in each of our buildings where that therapy can be done confidentially. One of the things that we've talked about over the years is that mental health issues are part of the struggles that we're having in keeping schools safe. When you look at some of the school shootings that have happened, it's people that are struggling with some of those mental health issues, and school violence issues can result from those mental health issues not being properly addressed. So we just think it's if we can provide a service, get students help in that regard in our facilities, in our schools, we think that's to our benefit. I know that there are lots of parents that just can't take time off of work to come get their child, take them to the therapist, bring them back to school. Very similar earlier this year when we talked about the dental care. It makes it easier to provide the service and get help for the family and the child if we can offer it in school. There's no cost to our district. This is a program that would be run through the parents if they agree to it through their insurance companies. We're just helping to provide the service during the school day to students in need.
My question is regarding the insurance. how does that work? If people have private insurance, it might not necessarily cover this particular provider, right? They may, if you have Traditions or you have Gunderson, it would cover, the insurance would cover services through Traditions or
Right.
Gunderson. How will this be useful if most parents' insurance won't even
Well, I
cover
think,
this provider?
I think the students that we're seeing that will benefit from this are students whose parents utilize Badger Care.
Okay.
They're not
I see.
families that necessarily have the private insurance, and those are the families that we often see can't get their children to a therapist.
That makes sense. So typically, you envision Badger Care insurance being involved. Okay. All right. That answers my question.
How about numbers, Cindy? What kind of a quantity are you talking about? Is there going to be a stipulation on where they'll attend this and how many students will be involved in it? Just open the door and say, if you want this kind of therapy, you can get it?
There will be students who are identified, and then
Okay.
our social workers and counselors will be working with those families.
All right.
I know that in the counselor, or the therapists and the company coming to meet with us, that our principals were saying they already had individuals that they know can benefit from this, and families who have indicated that they're interested. They will send a therapist here for as much time as is needed. So if it's 3 days a week traveling to our different buildings, that's how often they'll be here. If it's 5 days a week, that's how often they'll be here. So that ends up kind of being their problem based
Yeah.
on our needs, not necessarily what.
Well, the thing of it is, you look at this national level and all these shootings that are happening. They have identified that these people that do it do need mental help. And they've proven that in Connecticut, that he was mentally deranged. And across the board, other people like him have been. So as far as we're concerned here in Toma, I'm glad that this effort has been spearheaded. We need it. We're not exempt from anybody else around the country. It needs to be done.
And again, I think early intervention, the earlier
Right.
you can begin providing help to families and children, the better off.
Exactly.
Okay. I'd look for a motion to approve that memorandum as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the memorandum of understanding with Northwest Directions to provide mental health services in the Toma schools. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and that memorandum is, as presented, is approved. The next item is review and consideration of the CISA 4 contract services for 2013-2014.
I did embed for you the history again of what we have purchased from CISA in the past and what we are looking at purchasing this year. The good news is we're looking at approximately almost $100,000 worth of services, but that is down about $7,000 from last year. I've highlighted in gray just the areas that are new. You can see that our building debt, the portion of the CISA building that the Toma School District was responsible for over the year, that has dropped off. So we no longer have that payment to make, so that saved us over $5,000. We are adding in curriculum companion implementation support. This again ties to the Common Core. and work that our teachers are doing during collaboration time to get units and assessments on a document that will be readily accessible to them. As you know, the new educator effectiveness system is scheduled to be implemented fully for all school districts in the 14-15 school year. We are participating in a pilot currently for the principal effectiveness, and we have a group of individuals that are going to La Crosse for training at the end of this month, at the end of April, for the educator effectiveness portion of that. That's going to actually be held at the La Crosse Center. That's how many thousands of people are getting trained. But we need to be a part of CISA's educational efforts in that area too, because we just have to stay on top of that new initiative. You'll also notice that we are going to be purchasing some services from CISA in the career and tech ed area. We're going to have some new staff in that area, so having staff development networking nights for them to be able to participate in will be important, as well as the fact that we have to write by August of 2014 a new education for employment plan, and CISA will assist us in writing that. So we're going to be purchasing their services. Those are probably the key changes. We have decided not to continue participating in the Western Wisconsin Broadcast Instructional Council. Basically, we were receiving emails and a booklet on educational programs that are available for videotaping, and our staff members are on top of the types of programs that they would like to use, so we really don't feel like we need that service. We've also decided to go it alone with our online efforts. We have, I know we've talked about 20 teachers that are trained to teach online. We have started a professional learning community with them to be using our system, Infinity, to be embedding units and videos to get our coursework available, and we really haven't benefited from being a part of that consortium, so we thought we'd save the money from that. Otherwise, most of the services remain the same.
I think it's good to note that from the 08-09 school year and down to what you're suggesting now, it's about a $45,000 decrease. So that's an area that we have reduced over the past few years, so in the services that we need through them.
Do we pay for this essentially a la carte, or do we tell them we're going to get all these things and we commit contract for all of this?
We will send a contract for each of these services. CISA is very good though about, for instance, if we ended up not using something, they'll credit us the following year to be able to take advantage of that service. So, and if there were a change that we needed to make mid-year, I mean, they're pretty flexible to work with, because they are there to serve us as well. So, but we have a program description for each of these things that I sign off on once you approve the general amount, and I send that in.
So tonight, you're asking us to approve all of the amounts listed in that 13-14 column?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Gorder, just what part of the budget, what item in the budget does this get included? Or if when I would look at the budget, what category would this all be?
District-wide.
District-wide. Okay.
386, it would be object 386 more specifically if you're looking for that.
Just curious.
Designated CISA.
Okay.
You'll also find some of it in Fund 27, though any costs associated with special education will be charged in Fund 27.
Make a motion to approve the CISA 4 contract services as presented for the 2013-14 school year.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the CISA 4 contract services as presented for 2013-2014. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and those contract services with CISA 4 are approved.
Thank you.
Reaching the finish line. Next item, acceptance of gifts of money and/or materials.
Yes, we have almost $9,000 worth of donations this month. So we want to thank ExxonMobil. They made a donation of $500 to Camp Douglas and to LaGrange. So the mobile station in Camp Douglas and then the Southside Mobile in town made those donations. And the money I know is being spent on informational text, I believe science materials for our elementary classrooms. And then Walmart, Mr. Me had written a grant to promote a family literacy program, so we're looking at a family night at both probably Wyville and Warren's where reading is emphasized, and families that participate would be getting some free books to benefit from. We want to thank the Remembering Jesse Committee. They've donated $1,500 for fresh fruit for our backpack program. And our show choir parents raised over $5,000 to assist with costumes for show choir. And the Walmart Foundation made a $250 donation to the LaGrange Positive Activity Fund that will go for enrichment for students. So lots of wonderful gifts again.
So moved to approve with great thanks.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the acceptance of the gifts of money or materials as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries, and so yes, we are very thankful for all the gifts. And the next item, upcoming events and activities.
And so we have them laid out. Pam was kind enough to point out some things I forgot. So Wednesday, April 3rd, there is also an Activities Review Committee meeting.
That's from the last meeting, that's what I marked down, unless he's
So-
changed it. It would
Probably,
be 6
yeah.
o'clock on the
Okay.
3rd.
And I'll update this with that information. And Pam, that's usually held at the high school
Yes, at the high
library?
school. No, his,
Conference room off of the athletic office?
one of the conference rooms.
Okay.
We've moved around a couple times.
So we have board policy Tuesday, April 2nd. The March meeting, if you recall, was canceled due to snow, so we primarily have, I think, some administrative guidelines to be reviewing at that. Also, the election is that day, Tuesday, April 2nd. And so we will end the policy committee at 8 o'clock so that I can take election results that come in. We talked about April 3rd, teacher comp, and then activities review. The 4th is our legislative forum, so we have a whole week of enjoying each other's company. April 8th will be the Board of Canvassers meeting that will finalize the election results, and that's 5:15.
5:15 at the district office.
Then Wednesday the 10th is your normal facilities committee meeting. I believe that's at 4:30, 4 o'clock. And are you scheduled to be at LaGrange?
Yes.
Okay. And then the expanded security meeting will follow after that. 15th, regular board meetings. The 16th, our flexible learning year committee meeting. The 17th,
That's at
6:30, thank you,
6:30.
yes, instead of 5. And then an insurance meeting on the 17th. So that's another week of enjoying each other's company. And then we will have another special board academy on Monday, May 6th. We will discuss what the topic of that will be.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure at this point if we'll be ready to look at strategic plan recommendations from the administrators or not.
Okay.
We may not be ready for that. So. So I don't know if anybody sees any other conflicts or meeting times. Busy April.
All right, with that, we're losing
The rest of the
crowd.
audience.
Good night.
Good night. With that, the board will convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, sub 1, sub C, and sub F to discuss an employee request for early retirement benefits and 2 requests for a year leave of absence by a teacher and a support staff member. The board may take action as appropriate and necessary in closed session, and thereafter will entertain a motion to reconvene into open session. And so we will take a roll call vote.
Pam?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes?
Brian?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Debbie.
Woo-hoo.
Was that everyone? Okay. So motion carries, and we are in closed session.
Who made the motions? I'm sorry.
You didn't make a motion. I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry, we didn't have a motion.
Yeah, you voted, but I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Somebody want to second it?
Second?
There you go.
Oh, good, I'm not losing my mind.
Does everyone's vote remain the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Quick for you, Greg.
Motion carries, and we are in closed session.